Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Design and Dialogue number 50. I'm very pleased today to have with me Byron and Dexter Peart, who are good friends, not only good friends, but entrepreneurs extraordinaire. And I'll just tell you a little bit about Byron and Dexter before we begin. Born and raised in Ottawa, Canada, Montreal natives, Byron and Dexter Peart began their careers in fashion with the launch of Want Agency in 2000, where they introduced of-the-moment fashion brands to North America. Their broad knowledge of launching and developing meaningful brands led them to build a critically acclaimed fashion accessories brand, Want Les Essentiels, in 2007, followed by the multi-brand retail concept store Want Apothecary in 2011. In 2017, Byron and Dexter exited Want and launched Byron and Dexter Design as a purpose-led design studio. The redesign of the Mata Chica Resort in 2018 was their first design project. In May of 2019, the brothers founded GOODEE, an e-commerce direct-to-consumer platform that brings together the values of good design, good purpose, and good people across the home, beauty, accessory, and design stories told on the site and embodied in the brands that they feature. The first of its kind, GOODEE aims to design a kinder, smarter, and more beautiful world by bringing together consumers with ethical makers. Its curated group of brands is a dynamic selection that ranges in their missions of sustainability, social impact, heritage production, and organic materials. Each one carefully vetted by an in-house sustainability team. GOODEE and its co-founders have also partnered with the UN Ethical Fashion Initiative to design home textile products for the GOODEE brand, produced by the initiative's marginalized artisan communities, allowing for environmental regeneration as a next step for the platform. Entrepreneurs at an early age, Byron and Dexter will speak with me today about their practice and about their journey into design. Welcome, Byron and Dexter.
Hey, Stephen. Hey, everyone.
That was quite an introduction.
Yeah, you could keep going.
I'm trying to figure out how to speak to you, Stephen, at the same time as sending out messages to people who are commenting at the same time. So really happy to be here. Thanks for inviting us, and sorry to everyone who was holding. There was a technical difficulty on this end, not by us. There was a technical difficulty.
Hey, come on. These things happen. Welcome to the future. These Zoom conversations are quite unique in that we can be anywhere at any time if we can get the technology to work. So now that we're on, once again, thanks for joining me, you guys. You're both calling in from Montreal, if that's correct?
That's right.
Yeah, okay. We're both in Montreal in the same building, except distance by about 250 meters right now.
Yeah. Right, and you're living in a very historic development there in Montreal, Habitat 67, which we'll get to. We'd love to hear more about that. But I think I want to start first to understand your journey into design, how you went from the suburbs of Ottawa to kind of fashion consciousness and becoming fashion icons yourself, and then developing fashion brands. So, maybe we could start there. What was it that kind of led you into fashion?
I'll let Byron take that one. You want to go for it, Byron? 20 years in less than 20 minutes?
You could try to start that one off. I don't know how well I could take the fashion icon descriptor, but I will say, Dex and I, as you know, Stephen, and maybe some people on the call, we are very curious beings. We, from a very, very young age, we're always observing things that surrounded us, whether that be fashion or design or architecture. And we're also quite entrepreneurial from a young age. We had started, I think, our first businesses when we were at maybe 12 or 13 in high school, commercializing a homemade makeup brand in school. And that's just always carried our lives. Like when we went to university in Canada at Western Ontario, we both had a vision to work in business and in design. Our parents our economist. My father's an economist and our mother's a microbiologist. I will digress.
Wow.
We're four boys who somehow or another have all ended up in design. So Dexter and I, and what I guess you're getting familiar with our work, but we have our eldest brother's an architect, and our second older brother is actually working in the kids' furniture business as well, too, with a design company. So we keep trying to figure out what was that relationship between our parents and us all ending up in design. But them as Jamaican immigrants, I think early on, they just wanted us to feel that we had a boundless opportunity to be able to achieve whatever it was that we chose to do, as long as we had a proper education. So with schooling, the key was that we had to get our business degrees, and then we could choose whatever it was that we wanted to follow on. And
so is it true you both studied economics?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah. Followed in dad's footsteps. Both studied economics. I was, out of interest, mostly go back to fashion. I had always wanted to study at a fashion design school, and our university had an affiliated college that I was able to take courses there and look in pattern making and the history of design and history of textiles. And it was super exciting for me at the time, but it was more elective. And then by the time we left university, then we started both working for quite significant sportswear companies, Italian fashion brands, and then left after an incredible trip to Scandinavia for the first time. We ended up in 1998 in Stockholm. I was there for work, actually, with Diesel Jeans that I was working with before, and ended up meeting a very, very small 3-person company, a group of people, which was Acne Studios. At the time, they were going by Acne, and I ended up quitting our job and started a company together with Dexter, which was Want, and we ended up importing Scandinavian brands. We were, at the time, it's kind of hard to reflect now, it's more than 20 odd years ago, but this timeless, functional level of permanency and good design wasn't really prevalent in our surroundings in North America, or at least we didn't think so. And Scandinavian design in the furniture area was well known and recognized, but in fashion less so. And then we ended up at that period of time being the first people in North America to bring these fashion brands, and we brought a number of companies over to across the Atlantic. Nudie Jeans, Philippa K, Acne Studios, ended up working closely together with them to help build their brands, build their positioning and their placement and retail stores and the like in North America. Dexter's asked me 20 years in a few minutes. And subsequent to that, with a really great background in brand building and curating companies and storytelling, we ended up deciding we wanted to launch our own brand, and that's Want Les Essentiels. And in 2006-07, same kind of problem solution response. We were just seeing so much of this luxury offering that was highly bedazzled, also all by the main houses, European houses with a different sensibility. And we felt that there was a modern take on design, everyday items. If a bag could be used by all people of all sizes and all shapes and all backgrounds, and it wasn't pinpointed into just one certain narrative. And noticing your French before, Stephen, so Want Les Essentiels, which was about this play on desire and necessity. And we built a business now 15 years ago, basically posing a question about how do we find that balance between the contrast of what we want in life and what we need. And it's an evolving dialogue that carries together with us today. And subsequent to that, to move the time forward, I mean, we opened up a retail concept called Want Apothecary. If you have an audience in New York or Toronto that are here, we had stores in the Nomad Hotel, two stores in Toronto, and built an idea because we wanted to change how people were looking at retail, a much slower retail before these words of experiential retail, but we were rethinking what would it be like if someone came to a physical retail space that was similar to how you would go into a pharmacy in 80 years earlier, and that pharmacist would know your story, they would know your history and the like, and that well, all of our
not to interrupt, Byron, but just to go back to Want Agency for a minute, just to distinguish between, you've got Want Agency, which was a kind of your first kind of curatorial project, let's say, where you were
Yeah.
curating brands to bring over and introduce to North America, including Acne Jeans, right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of your wholesale business, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And then on Les Essentiels, which was the establishment of your first brand, right?
Correct.
And so that was really about having this distinction between what you want and what's essential, right? So getting that a more refined reading of what fashion and fashion accessories could be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then Want Apothecary was your retail.
Yeah, yeah, because it wasn't complicated enough to only be in one vertical business. We chose to be in the distribution company, own brand, and retail all at the same time. We don't do things easily, Stephen.
But I think what you're getting at is that the experiences that you gained early on were kind of the building blocks for where you're at today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's a good segue, Stephen, into sort of where those formative years professionally led us to Goody, right? And so in a lot of ways, I think what Byron was speaking to before about this kind of frustration that we had with you know, the fashion industry and the amount of merchandise that was being produced. And I think early on, we had made this concept of the essentials, these things that had permanence, these things that were built to last, as being sort of foundational in our point of view and in our sort of design thesis as well too. And so I think we came to this inflection point right around 2006, 2007, where we kind of had these two choices. Choice number one was, how do we keep expanding on what we believe in through this conversation around want and need that Byron was talking about. And then we saw already that there was a slow but clear shift in customer behavior and in what people might be looking for next. And we always wanted to be a part of that conversation and so and a part of that design story. So we got to the point where we made a decision that either we were going to try to incorporate our philosophy into want, or we were going to build something new that was wholly and completely where we were sort of 20 years later, and building off of all of those experiences that we sort of nurtured over those first 20 years.
Yeah, I can speak for myself in that the early millennium for many of us was this moment of consciousness, right? Where all of a sudden we were looking at the things we were making, the things we were buying, the things we had always been curious about, right, in the 20th century, and really questioning why and how do we make them and how do we distribute them, and really rethinking these different modes of operation. But before we get into Goody, I'm curious if you can tell us a little bit more about that transition. Like, what was it that led to your own consciousness? Like, what led to this kind of purpose-driven perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll continue on that.
Little moment.
Yeah, there is a moment, and I think and the moment is quite crystal clear. I mean, there's two moments. Moment number one is where Byron was. I mean, we had this sort of haphazard chance to connect with Mickey Drexler and Jenna Lyons back in 2009. We were actually at an opening ceremony in Los Angeles. We ran into Mickey. We ended up forging a friendship and did a collaboration partnership together with J. Crew. And it was back on, and Mickey was kind of like, you guys can do whatever you want. What do you want to do? And because want was always purpose driven, we kind of went on the J. Crew website and said, you guys aren't doing anything around sustainability. You're not sort of looking at your business right now and putting out products that meet a sort of sustainable or responsible standard. What we want to do is do the first thing at J. Crew. And that was back in 2009. So that's like the earliest time. And what we tried to do within our own company over the next 10 years was build our business to meet the response that we felt passionate about. And I think we did a pretty good job. In 2015, which is sort of the aha moment, Stephen, I think was we were honored with Fast Company's 100 Most Creative People in Fast Company magazine for the year of 2015. And we were at an event in Montreal called C2 Montreal. And C2 is amazing. It's this almost TED Talk style show. It's called C2 because it's the connection between commerce and creativity. So there's Byron and me. We're with 4,000 people in the stands listening to all of these amazing people pontificate and opine on all of these ways that we can change the world through creativity and through commerce. And Fast Company actually happened to be one of the sponsors. And then they, the owners of C2 came up and said, look, we just have these Montrealers that happen to be in the crowd. These guys are Fast Company's 100 most creative. Will you guys come up next year and tell us your design story? So that was cool. And then afterwards, like 8 months later, Byron and I completely forgot about it, got back to work. We get a phone call. You're up on stage in 3 months. What are you guys going to talk about? And we had no idea. Like, I got to tell you, Stephen, we were running a business and I'm like, oh my God, we got 18 minutes and we got to talk about something. And we have no idea what we're going to talk about. And then kind of selfishly, we decided, we locked into this one idea. And the idea was a conversation for 18 minutes about what is essential. And obviously that conversation, what is essential, permeated on a variety of different levels. But it meant that Byron and I had to carve out time after, 15, 16 years in the business and say, what is essential, like, for us? And we devised 4 points that we spoke about. And that was, to be essential, it has to have purpose, it has to be intelligent, it has to be beautiful, and it has to be universal. And then we dived for 18 minutes into that and told all these people, this is what we stand for. It's 2017. And then I think we had kind of walked away from that and looked in our own business and said, how are we even scoring on those 4 points: purpose, intelligence, beauty, and universality? And frankly, we were doing pretty well, but there was no way we can score super well in the infrastructure that we had already built. And so we said, we kind of had these two choices: a design story, either like change the windows and change the floors in the house, or knock the building down and build something from new. And that is the perfect segue into GOODEE. I mean, we launched GOODEE, and the first line was designing a kinder, smarter, more beautiful world, which was just those 4 points in a business. And so GOODEE exists on that aha moment of the 4 things we believe in wholly and completely. And now we're turning that into the manifestation of a business.
Back to you, Byron. I guess I'm wondering, from a fashion perspective, what was it about want that, or let's say your business in fashion, that wasn't fulfilling all of those? I mean, we all know fashion is one of the top 5 polluters of the world, doesn't necessarily operate at the highest ethical standards, and social responsibility standards. So, I mean, was your transition a kind of critique of fashion in a way?
Yeah, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, because I mean, as I said before, growing up, we both have a profound appreciation for fashion and style, and the ability to not only share a personal communication about yourself, but the whole story and narrative of tradition and the like. And so we are not anti-fashion. Like, it was just the very first point. And I would never say that would even come into our lexicon. I think what the frustration was we were, and I like that you weaved in all the different aspects of what we had done. We were so ingrained in the fashion system, Stephen, that it was very evident to us, whether it's from a distribution and a wholesale and inventory management side, whether it was retail and the level of seasonality and trend orientation, and then from a consumer side, just really starting to reflect on where you were back in the early millennium, of thinking about how much do we really need. We were, personally, we travel a lot. We used to have 2 apartments, and having clothes in 2 different places, the whole logic. But at the end of the day, and I think we know each other well, our wardrobes don't need to be so large or differentiated, especially. And I think getting older also really did make a reflection on that as well too. Dexter and I we're 48 right now. We were 45 at that moment when we were kind of reimagining. And I think there's a lot of it is in a sign of the times, when the frustration for us, we used to sell to a major, well, I could say Barney's retailer, and it was the epitome of what we wanted to be a partner in the global landscape. And there was a moment in, I would say probably around 2014, 2015, when we were making a significant push about sharing the narrative about we were working with recycled nylon, organic cotton, a whole conversation about production and raw materials. And we had a senior buyer who said, we love it. That's one of the reasons we love your brand. We think that this probably resonates with your audience. However, if we start to illuminate that story, we have to give a reason why all of the other products in our offer are not done that way. So we'd rather not share that part of the story. And for us,
obviously a Goody moment.
sorry,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
obviously a Goody moment. And then we started thinking about if all of these makers like ourselves are doing all of this work foundationally to create product and to tell their story and narrative. And of course, it's a little bit different now because there's a more of a direct-to-consumer transact. But you, at that time, you're really counting on these partners to be there to trade for you, to tell your story, to bring your whole background and experience to the fore. And they wanted to shelve that because it would make some kind of determination on the rest of their product. And I think that is probably the single biggest issue, which we still see in the fashion business today, is you'll find a lot of retailers are having conversations about conscious consumption or sourcing product, but they'll go only to a certain level. They'll go to about 5 to 10 or 15% of the product offering to be in a conversation. But we are really feeling that that for an industry like fashion and clothing and wearables, things that you don't need to wear every single day, that there has to be a complete revamp of the system, boots to nut, and it's not even close to there today.
Well, clearly, the fashion system's in trouble. Barney's is now defunct.
Yeah,
of course, things have changed so dramatically, and you know, you guys have almost seamlessly transitioned into a very different kind of business. So tell us a little bit about what really sets Goodee apart.
I have to just, for that transition, I have a funny story because we were speaking to someone before we started working in the home business, and Dex and I had this idea that everyone was going to be so nice and loving in the home and furniture business, and we still have that opinion, by the way. But someone we know, they were like, it's the same cutthroat business as fashion. I don't know where you guys got this idea from. Yeah, it was part of the transition. I think we were looking for safer waters to navigate as well too, by entering into a slower and more permanent product offering business as well too. Yeah, Dex, I think I cut you off. Dex, go for it.
No. I think Stephen's got it. Thinking of that transition, Stephen, it was kind of, we knew that we wanted to do something different. We did see an opportunity. I think Byron used the word slow before. I think we were looking for a slower living reality. You know, things were getting very hectic. People were sort of swapping in and out of products, and nothing was really sticking. And then you ask yourself from a design perspective, you know, how do we only introduce things that people are going to care about? And I think that was the big design sort of moment for us for that transition, was what if we only put things into the world that had a really strong story, had a supply chain rigor and discipline, had value, but not just value from a promotional standpoint, but value as how those things were introduced and played a role in your life and functioned for you. And then that set off this sort of cascade of events, which was, well, okay, but what are those things? And where would you find them? And how hard is it to find them? And what are those stories? And that captured the curiosity and the imagination that Byron and I had. And then one of the things that happened really sort of right away post exiting the brand that we had built and was really our baby, were two big moments. One of them, we got a phone call from a dear friend, Simone Cipriani, who's manages an effort for the United Nations called Ethical Fashion Initiative. And that happened literally, I think Business and Fashion had written that we had exited Want. And then afterwards, within a day, Simone, who's also a friend and person of Business and Fashion, reached out to us and said, guys, you have no excuse. I want you to come to Africa. I want you to come see what we're doing. And Goodee had already been in our heads. And so we went on a journey with him, and that was the beginning of something really, really special. And then, yeah, go.
This is probably a really good moment to start the slideshow. As we get into the Goody story, it's really interesting to me that kind of moment began where you went back to, you went to Africa for the first time. Was it the first time? Was it your first trip to Africa?
No, I mean, from a design story, I mean, there's a good story here. It is really back to Africa. When we had started Les Essentiels, and some of the people who know the earliest version of it. It started with us producing items in South Africa. So from the very beginning, it's almost like a lot of these things are recurring journeys of our lives where we were able to go back to the homeland and the continent in general, and go there in partnership with the United Nations. And that was like really, really heartwarming. But when we went, Stephen, we didn't go to make a business. We just went to go see. And you got to imagine, for guys like us who love that sort of handmade and maker process and artisan elements that are very human, for us just to get back to the making was such a rich experience for us when we got to Africa, to Burkina Faso, and to Mali.
Absolutely, I can imagine. Let's go to the next image there and see where we're at. So we're sharing a slideshow here now, designing a kinder, smarter, more beautiful world. So the pillars of GOODEE, Dexter: good people, good design, good product,
good impact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me, I mean, how did you arrive at these three pillars, and did it come out of that trip with ethical fashion?
Yeah, I mean, the funny story there, Stephen, I mean, to know Byron and me, we had been running headstrong for so many years. And then finally, for the first time in our lives, we had a break. We never had a break before. And I've got two young girls, now 7 and 10, which I guess 3 years ago would have been like much younger. But I was like, I need a break. And then Byron was like, let's start whiteboarding GOODEE right away. He's like, let's get into it. Let's get into it right now. And I think we took a little bit of a time off to really sort of formalize the vision, and using those 4 key items, like that sort of kinder, smarter, more beautiful world, that had already existed in our head. And then the question was how? And we came to the point where we really made that decision that the how was being very, very, very specific about what we were trying to do. And it made the decision process or the design process easier because we just wrapped it around 3 things. That for this business to really be strong and smart and kind, it really needed to check off 3 boxes. And one of them was, and maybe it was just a function of where we were in our lives, was that it's all about people. This is a human-centric company. I mean, I know that people use this language, but Byron and I have always been about that, and telling the stories of real people and how it affects their real lives. Getting into that handmade element and seeing the craftsmanship of people is a wonderful sort of tableau to be able to write the story of GOODEE on. And then on the impact side, we had just reached this point in our lives where we decided that if we were going to touch something, we wanted to know that that had an impact. And so it was about how do we then dig deeper into what does that impact look like? What does that transparency look like? How do you assess that? How do you build off of that? And then build a community around all of these people that in their own way are doing good things.
Yeah, well, that was really my next question is I guess, how do you determine what are good people? How do you define good design? And then how do you assess good impact, of course?
Yeah. And then so the last piece, which was the design of these 3 sort of key pillars in our brand, Stephen, was the one that came to us last. It was almost like it was this short journey of trying to figure out what we really cared about and what we thought people were going to care about. And it's almost funny that we're having this conversation, design and dialogue, and Byron and I having such a strong design background, but it was only the 3rd leg of the stool that we figured out the importance for. That was only through design that we were going to be able to strengthen a conversation that was, of course, about responsible consumption and responsible production, but through the lens of design. And so these products had to be beautiful. These products had to work for you. These products have to live on for a long time. And then we were able to then build a structure around how we do make those decisions, Stephen, where every single thing we touch, who are the people behind them? Why do they do what they do? What encourages them to do that? What is their point of view? What is their love and voice on this? And then we dig into that, and then we dig into the impact as a number 2, and alongside whether we think these are design products that people are actually going to love and use and last for a long time. So
yeah,
we actually have I'm going to just say, and maybe this is for later, but we have a strong assessment tool that we do before we bring any brand onto the Goodie platform. We could talk about it now, or we could talk about it later.
No, sure. We can continue with the images, but I mean, obviously, in the 21st century, you know, authenticity, generosity, and let's call it specificity, right, are the kind of watchwords, and the way that you've defined it around people, design, and impact. It's extraordinary that you've managed to build this type of company, which obviously all brands today want to build, in such a short amount of time. It's only been 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, not even, about 16 months.
Yeah. So what I guess, you know, tell us a little bit about how you find the people that you want to work with, how you find the products that you selected for the site, because just so that our audience understands, it's both a platform, right, for the brands that you're showcasing, as well as a kind of storytelling vehicle, right, for telling their stories and the stories of your broader community, right? So tell us a little bit more about how you access all of these.
Yeah, I would say that one of the first things, which was quite exciting, and back to that transition period, was we had a lunch in New York with a friend, and we were telling him early on about the idea that we had, and we said we know that and we had identified a handful of makers and brands that were in our minds of who could come on Goodie, be partners with us in Goodie from the start. And then we said there is a limitless amount of companies that are out there that are just looking for the right environment and platform to be gathered together in, almost like, and so what we started with, Stephen, was really looking at, we were fortunate to have been well-traveled and have some really interesting relationships with brands like Nanny Marquina. I'll digress for 1 second, because I think it's exactly an interesting point to your question. One thing we didn't discuss, and I think it's in a slide, but I think it bodes well for your conversation, is that we had an opportunity to design a hotel in Belize. And because I'm gonna put it on us, like what we had to do as designers first. It was quite cool because it's someone that we knew and had respected our work before, has a series of hotels, 30 casitas on the second largest barrier reef. He had been imagining a new way of having a conversation around conservation. Obviously, Belize and the natural environment was consistent with taking a position for his guest and for him as an owner. So then Dexter and I, which was cool because we had this in between time off period. And then we said, you know, this could be a really exciting opportunity because Goodie was in our mind, but we're like, how easy would this be to formulate? Which kind of companies and brands are out there that could be part of the story? Because what ultimately we set out to do was to create an interior that reflected a very modern approach to not only local materials, but then also just a sensibility around craft, conservation. In the case of the amenities that were used, removing plastic use from the site, and so on and so forth. So we did a full 360 approach to this, and then I found probably 10 to 12 partners that we ended up working with on the project, and it was a bit of a testing ground. Some of those today, which are known, whether it's Coco Mat in Greece or Tejedores in Spain, Nanny Marquina. We work with an amazing company that's doing artisan craft work called Texture for they're working in Mexico. We went to Guatemala and worked together with some skilled artisans. We were in Guadalajara working with ceramic makers. Incredible. And then thinking that instead of approaching a design for a physical environment as kind of like in one approach where it was just about, well, what does that hotel do? It's that every piece that was inside that environment made up the tapestry of the guest experience as well too. And I think someone's going to a screen there. And so the starting point, Stephen, was like, we knew, I'd say 25 key partners that we wanted to launch with. And in the 16 months ago that Dexter was referring to, that's how GOODEE launched. We had done an assessment together with these companies. We built together with their sustainability team and some advisors who are in the ESG space. Very exciting to look at how we could approach these companies, understand their business with a heightened sense. And then from there, what actually quite changed quickly is that once we launched, we started to find that there was a number of makers, brands that were coming inbound. So while at the beginning, it seems logical that Byron and Dexter and this team are going around in the world and finding all of these brands and makers on our own, what's quickly happened and facilitated our opportunity is that not only are there consumers, there are makers themselves, or someone like you says, you have to go and see these people. They could potentially be a great fit inside this larger community. And it becomes very exciting for us that there's a lot of potential partners that don't have the right environment. They don't have a space where they could share their story together with like-minded individuals. And so today, while a lot of it was going out and finding these, and still remains that way, a lot of it is also coming to us as well too, through the stories that we're sharing, through opportunities like this, and people saying they want to be a part of the platform.
I think it's very interesting that the hotel project and you guys operating as designers actually fed into your GOODEE concept, right?
Yeah.
And speaking from the perspective of design, right, when we have to, in the trade, and we have to source various materials, et cetera, for a project, it's when you become, or when you're in a product development mode, you become much more, you come in much closer contact with the sources of those products, right? So you really consider where are they coming from, who's making it, how are they making it, et cetera. But it makes me ask the question of, who is your audience? Because you have the potential, if we think about the project, to both speak to the trade and also speak to the design consumer.
Yeah, Dex, I don't know if you want to jump in. We set out with the business being largely consumer orientated, Stephen. I won't say that it's a surprise, but it's really interesting that the trade has also been, not trade in that Byron and Dexter are doing these design projects, but we have a multitude of designers who are coming to GOODEE and recognizing a twofold. One, which is exciting for us, is that their clients are looking for this level of not only the consistency in how we work, but bringing that narrative and storytelling into their home or into their physical projects, whether that be commercial or residential. And so, and I think one of the significant movements, even in terms of architecture, is a heightened awareness to how buildings are built, and that interiors is a kind of a natural follow-on. So if this approach has been taken in a commercial property, well, then it makes sense that the let's say that the food and beverage department, if they're looking at their seating for tables and chairs, that they're also looking at that, or the glassware or the plates and the like. So the trade is quite exciting because it will be it is already and will continue to be a significant opportunity for GOODEE. There's no question.
Yeah, fantastic. So back to, I guess, the question of what makes it GOODEE. I mean, I think the name is really fantastic because it speaks to all of those aspects: good people, good design, good impact. But how do we then define what makes the brand, what makes the platform GOODEE? I know that you're a B certified corporation, so maybe we could speak a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna say it sounds stupid, and I sometimes say I'm never gonna repeat this, but Dexter, he wrote down early on, he goes, the company's GOODEE, not Grady, and I think and the only reason I'm prefacing with that is because one of the most important approaches that I think Dexter and I have brought to GOODEE is that everyone who's a part of this journey and the story is in some form of evolution. And what we are looking at first and foremost, and Dexter talked about it on the good people, good design, and good impact side, is that foundationally, that's where it starts. But that we ourselves and all of our partners are continually working to do more, to understand more, to listen more, and to lead in a different way. B Corp has been very exciting because early on, when we first had the idea and set up the company, which would probably be not standard, we set out and registered as a benefit corporation in the US, went to B Labs directly with basically an idea and about a 2-page business plan, and said to them that we recognized that there was no marketplace. There were at the time probably around 2,500 B Corp certified companies in the world, and about half of those are in North America, but there was no marketplace. So if these companies that had already gone through a significant amount of rigor in terms of their certification, but that as a consumer, it felt odd to us that there was no destination where you could find these brands. Of course, with Goody, and Dexter mentioned before, with the design element, it's not every B Corp company that becomes interesting for Goody. But if the company has a rooting and a commitment to their ESGs and also a design approach, then it becomes a very interesting platform for us as well too. So our certification ourselves was twofold. One, because we felt that there was an opportunity and platform for these types of companies to come together. But on a second note was that we really felt it was critical that from the initial stage, and Dexter talked about the partnership together with the Ethical Fashion Initiative, was that every aspect of our business was looked through a committed lens and discipline about how we work, how our supply chain is built, how we look at everything from our operations, our warehousing, how we look at our employee structure. And for anyone who doesn't know B Corp, I guess I probably skipped that point, but I think it's fairly clear. This is an organization that will and can certify any company in any area of business, whether it be in services or goods. And it's really exciting because what it starts with is you do a self-assessment, which you go online, and then through that there's a review process, and then you have an opportunity to go through what is a very detailed and laborious, but in a good way, series of reporting. That includes physical interviews, that's written testimony, that's reporting, that shows everything from impact. Yeah.
Just to clarify, B Corporation is a for-profit corporation, so it's not a not-for-profit. It is a for-profit corporation. So Goody is a for-profit corporation, correct?
Yeah, Goody is a benefit corporation, but it's when you're asking for profit. We're not this, and it's very important for B Corp and for Goody. I'm speaking for us, is that there is no notion which we're trying to convey that this is a charitable organization or that this charity. This is in order to provide business capacity building for companies. The idea of B Corp and Goody is to show that business, there is no necessary trade-off between doing business that is economically and financially viable, as well as doing a business that serves community and society at large as well too.
Yeah, I make this distinction because in my own work, I believe in trade, not aid, right?
Yeah.
Because all of these communities need opportunities to participate in design, and have an opportunity to kind of grow and have progress through design, right? If we believe in design making change, we also have to believe in design allowing everyone the space to participate. So I think that's a really important point. We haven't heard from Dexter in a minute. I think we're having an issue.
I just noticed a text. I think we might be having a technical. It's the best thing about having twins on a call, Stephen, is that while we do have two heads, he's probably permeating some message through a form of telepathy to me as well too. So until we get him back, then I'll do double duty gladly.
Yeah, of course. So maybe we can go on to the next slide, and we can talk a little bit about some of the brands that you're representing on Goody, and some of the stories and people.
Yeah, I think that one of the key things early on for us was to find a really interesting balance of not building a platform that was just transactional. At the end of the day, I think the consistency is that change comes through trade, as you just put it. Change comes through awareness, which comes through storytelling as well too. And change comes from bringing people together. And so this kind of area of the commerce and the content and the community building was key and important from the start, Stephen. Early on, I think it's quite interesting right now because there's so much attention to telling stories, whether it be of people of color or telling stories about the home, because they're very much in the moment right now. Goody from the start, this is foundational to us, and I think you know, and you've seen the stories that we've been sharing have been really rooted in trying to understand what not only the future holds, but what really matters and what brings meaning to our lives, right? And so you can't, for us, it's important that we're not having a conversation which is just bring this pillow into your home because it's beautiful, but bring this pillow into your environment because it becomes part of a story. It becomes part of a narrative. It's part of something that surrounds you and is with you when you're having shared moments with loved ones. And then all of these conversations we've been having and the stories that we've highlighted, and I encourage anyone who's listening, if they feel willing and have the time, is that we've taken a deep dive and understand and in reimagining what home means to people, reimagining the idea of and privilege of what so many of us have to be able to have home, a sense of home or place. With the project that we're working on with our bags, it's largely rooted around a community building opportunity with a social cooperative that's working with.
Let's talk about that. Because the bags,
so
bags are part of your own Goody brand, correct?
Yeah, and I think it's a great pivot because as much as, and back to the conversation we were before, as much as we're looking at it, all of these other companies and makers that are doing good work and bringing them together and highlighting their story, it was foundational and critical that Goody did that itself as well too. So there is an aspect of curation on one side and creation on the other, and that's very much how our brains work, and maybe again, two people. And one of the first products that we created is called the Bassi Market Tote. And with our background, obviously in bags, we just launched that this spring. And it's a beautiful story because it touches so many aspects of what we believe Goody stands for. First and foremost, the fabrics are made in Burkina Faso, as Dexter had mentioned before. So we're working with these amazing artisans who have incredible traditional skills that are unfortunately underutilized because of just their ability to trade globally. Working in Mali right now, I think you know the impact that Mali's been having from an insurgent stand.
The bags were developed. Were the bags developed with the UN Ethical Fashion Initiative?
Yeah, they are. But that's where I was going, is that just this one product. So the fabrics are made in partnership with the Ethical Fashion Initiative, and the fabrics are made in West Africa, and then the products are made with a social cooperative called Cartiera in Italy, and it's really amazing. And where I was talking about home before, because what this social cooperative's mandate is to provide work, fair trade opportunity for new migrants and refugees who have come into Europe from for the most part, Northern Africa and West Africa as well too. So at one point in the raw material stage, there's an impact that's being made with the workers in Burkina Faso and the skilled craftsmanship of the fabric. And then the bag is made in Italy, together with a group of workers who otherwise would not be able to not only work, there's an education opportunity that they have, they're paid in European wages, and they're learning in many cases a skill that they would not have, and when they go back to their home countries, they'll be able to transfer that and the education with them as well too. So Bassi Rou, I'm glad you just went to that page. He's a Burkinabe young man. He's wonderful. We're so proud to work together with him, and we together with him decided to name the bag after him, because it's in some ways that bag is telling very much his story, moving from Burkina Faso and getting this gainful opportunity and employment in Italy. And us as bag makers were able to create a product that really served a consumer, which we recognize there's just an opportunity for this product to be with people every day, to be part of their story and their ritual. And it's a wonderful, not only narrative, but we are making a significant impact with just one product, and are very excited about what's to come with this partnership.
Absolutely. So we're running out of time now.
Out of time, yeah.
I just wanted to ask, as a kind of last question before we go on to the questions with the audience,
yeah.
Just speak to the range of products that you're taking on, and the relationship between the stories and how remaining in the decor space, in a sense, contributes to how, you know, a small object can be transformational in the home, and in a sense, you want to speak a little.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's super exciting, I think everyone keeps thinking, I like where you started the conversation, because I think everyone's expecting us to bring fashion into the quotient. I think we had started early on with a very simple notion of, I'd say they're roadblocks: ageless, genderless, sizeless, seasonless, and timeless. And that's how we operate. And that is pretty exciting, because the home space, and I'm looking at it in the room I'm in right now, these are things that ideally they transport with you, they're passed down, you can pass it down a generation, where the opportunity, when you said decor, it's pretty much anything that surrounds you, Goody is interested to do. Like and that's, you can see that on the site. It's decor, it's kids, there's personal care, we are in accessories, we work with scarves and bags and the like. So it's pretty broad. There's a lot of opportunity
But you're not necessarily going into sofas and beds.
We are not, for a couple of reasons today. One is operational, and two is from a sustainability standpoint. To be quite honest with you, we are spending an inordinate amount of time at looking at transportation, warehousing costs, movement of goods. We don't have that infrastructure today, but of course, I think the largest thing that we carry is a table, like a cafe table, and we work with chairs. But for the most part, we're not fully into that. We see a great opportunity in terms of decor items and personal care things. Yeah,
absolutely. Interesting. So I'm thinking maybe now we can probably go to some questions. Are we able to solve the issue with?
I think Dexter's back.
I'm back.
He's back.
I'm back. I'm back. I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm back, and I'm proud of my brother for holding it down while I was muzzled for a few minutes. But now I'm back, and
he
ready
has
to
answer all the questions now.
I'm
Steven.
good. I'm good. I've got it. I got it.
All right. Fantastic.
Anyways, thanks.
So let's have a look at, let's see what questions we have from the audience. I guess if I could just ask a first question, maybe we could speak a little bit to, because we didn't really talk about the circumstances of quarantine and COVID, et cetera, which we're all dealing with. And somehow Goody is perfectly positioned to kind of weather the storm, as it's direct to consumer, and you're telling the stories of home, et cetera. But tell us a little bit from a personal note how you guys have been doing there, and how you've been managing to work with each other and your families.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're very fortunate. I think that when you think about the last few months, they've been, you know, a major shift for everyone. And I think life has changed for each and every one of us. As I said before, you know, I've got two girls, 7 and 10, who, you know, we're homeschooling in the early months, and then we're 1 week away from them going back to school. But one of the things that I think, Stephen, and we were talking about people, you realize that we were moving at a very frenetic pace before. And it's not to say that our lifestyles are not still fast. We've got a startup business. We're gaining a lot of momentum. But I think we did get a chance to recalibrate on some of the things that were important to us. And then, you know, you intimated on Habitat 67, where, you know, we've been living in this building, at least on my side of the family, for 14 years. Byron and his husband and their new dog have been living there for over 10 years. And, you know, we're just thinking about design and how design permeates itself in a time like today. I almost feel like Habitat 67 was built for a pandemic. You know, we have indoor space, outdoor space, a tremendous amount of light, these open corridors when Moshe Safdie was thinking about, you know, an outdoor space for all. So when you think about the way that we're living in this sort of stay-at-home new reality, we've been very fortunate, and I'm very excited, and I think it encourages me every single day that when I look at something that was built literally 50 years ago, that was able to be an intelligent design structure, that even through different elements, it still works. That really is what motivates us with GOODEE as well too, is right, like trying to anticipate what are these other design thinkings that can transcend, you know, time and experience. So I mean, we're lucky, everyone's safe. We're in Canada, so we're also
that helps. That helps. No,
So,
but I mean, I think you touched upon the fact that we're all looking at our homes anew for the first time, right? And the home becomes a kind of laboratory for these experiments, and in a sense, trying to kind of improve our surroundings is really what GOODEE's all about. We have a question from Wendy Moonan. Wendy, are you there? Would you like to ask the question directly? Waiting.
No, she says no. No, she says no. She says no, thanks. But Wendy's asking, where does one buy GOODEE products? It's at goodeeworld.com. That's it.
That should be clear. Let me put that in the chat. Just for everyone. The site is goodeeworld.com.
Yeah, and I think I will intimate that for Wendy and anyone else who saw what we had done. So we had a pop-up last fall, which we didn't speak to, at the Whitney Museum in New York. And it is still very important that with the of course, this is a very different time now, going back to your question before. But GOODEE, as much, is an online first business, but in the mid and long term, we very much like the idea of being able to meet the consumer and share not only a conversation, but to see the product, to feel the product, to tell the stories of these makers together in a physical environment. It was a wonderful and meaningful opportunity that we had for 4 months pre-COVID with the Whitney Museum, and we foresee in the future that, so if Wendy or anyone else wants an even more heightened experience, then that there will be more opportunities to come when things feel more appropriately set up for that.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I suppose I'd just like to conclude by asking you, what's next?
More of this. I think I'm gonna go first. I'll go because since I didn't have my time before. I think what's next is a lot of more of the same. There's so many amazing stories, so many voices that we want to share their stories. Stephen, I mean, one of the things we didn't talk about, but you know, diversity and impact are two very strong elements that are foundational in GOODEE, and I think we are in an amazing position to share more stories, more products through a more diverse and more responsible lens. And so as we grow, it's to Byron's point, it's about watch this space, and as we create a platform for more people that we think are inspiring us and are hyper aspirational, that are having conversations about good design and good impact. So we appreciate a moment like this to be with a fellow good person, good designer who makes maximum impact, and you know, sharing our story has been a lot of fun. So we appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Steve.
I'm gonna just take 10 seconds to add. I think one of the things, because going back to this moment, retail is changed so much now, and I think what's going to end up happening is going to be even more difficult for makers and artisans to find a platform and an opportunity to tell and share their story. And when you're saying what's next, I think Dexter and I feel an opportunity and a duty to create that environment where some otherwise independent startup or established brands could find a place to help share, to tell their story with an audience that's captive and ready to make an impact and make a movement on it. So yeah, that's the time. It's an interesting time, and I think we're very much ready to take an even heightened role in it as well too. Thanks,
Great.
Steve.
Yeah. Thank you, Byron. Thank you, Dexter. Thanks everyone
Thanks,
for joining.
guys.
All right. Thanks
Appreciate
everyone
it.
for staying
Thanks,
late with
everyone.
us. Yeah.
All right, we'll speak soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers, bro.